Hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about general trumpet construction, how notation works, and then really focus today on getting our first three notes. We're going to learn that by both looking at the music, me explaining what system I'm going to use for valve notation, and then how to make your embouchure to actually play those notes. So first, when we talk about the trumpet, we have three valves, right? So the first valve, what I'm going to call 1, is just your first finger, the valve closest to you when you hold your instrument up to your mouth. 2 is where your middle finger is, the middle of the three valves, and 3 is your third finger. So if I say 1 or write 1 under a note, it's just your first finger. If I write 2 under a note, it's just your second finger. If I write 1, 2 together under a note, that is your first and second finger together, pressing both valves at the same time. So, the first note we are going to work with today is our C. So, using my handy dandy notation here, I'm going to draw us a treble clef, because that is the clef we read in. Then, I'm going to draw this note down here. This is a middle C. We call it that because if you drew a bass clef down here, it would be in the middle of the whole staff. So, but we're not talking about bass clef, we're just talking about up here. To play a middle C, it is just open. So I'm going to put a 0 underneath that to show you that none of your fingers need to be used. So it sounds a bit like. Right? So when we play the trumpet, and we will have worked on this a little bit before, last year, you're going to take the mouthpiece out by itself, you're going to purse your lips together real hard like you just ate something sour, and then you're going to force air right in between those lips, right in the center, try to keep it as middle as possible, and make it sound like this. So there should be a little square in the middle of your mouth where that noise is coming through. Right? If that's a little hard for you to do, start with a very loose lip, like a horse. Just go. Right? And then as you do that, start to tighten your lips up. And you might get a little spitty, and that's okay. That's how you start. But once you have that sound, doesn't necessarily have to be that note. It can be anything. You can play different notes with just your lips if you practice enough. You're going to take your mouthpiece, do the lips, and move the mouthpiece into place as you do it. And you're going to make mouthpiece sounds just with the mouthpiece, right? Right now, it doesn't matter what note you're hitting. You just got to get the sound out of the mouthpiece. If you're having trouble with the mouthpiece making sound, go back to just your lips. Once you have that down, add the mouthpiece back in. Those are long tones. When you're doing that, it's just you are using your tongue to hit the back of your teeth and the top of your mouth while you do that. So, and then every time you stop a note, your tongue hits the back of your teeth to stop that air. We'll talk about that more in a sec, but once you've got the buzz, and then the mouthpiece buzz, we're going to put that right in the instrument. When you hold your trumpet, you're going to grip it with your left thumb on the back, left ring finger, third finger in the ring, left middle finger on the valves, and left first finger on the valves as well. I generally play with a little bit of a raised hand, but you're going to hold it like this. And then your right hand, pinky on top of the ring or inside, and then 1, 2, 3, just to hold it properly. Right up and down, should be parallel to the ground, and then exact same thing, don't press any of the valves down, make that same sound. That's your first note. That's your C. Now if it's sounding a little bit shaky, and you're hitting it on and off, your jaw is moving. You're going blah, 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 while you do it. So just keep your jaw nice and straight. Your stream of air should be consistent, and that'll help you not shake. If I speed up my air, I'll hit the wrong note. If I slow down my air, I won't hit any note. So keep a nice consistent airflow. Feel where too much air is and too little air is, and settle somewhere in the middle. It's going to be different feeling for everyone's mouth, and this will take time to get a nice, consistent, clean note. So that's C. That's our very first note right there. Now, work on that for a good while. When you are ready, come back to this video and we'll work on the second note. So, the second note is the note right above it, which we're going to call D. We're going to call it that because that's its name. And this one is the first valve and the third valve. So that is pressing the first valve down and the third valve down. So your middle finger should just be hovering above this other valve, not pressing it down. You got to make sure the valves are pressed all the way down or it won't make the right sound. So this is the sound you're looking for. Right? If my valves aren't all the way down, say if they're halfway, it's going to sound like this. Because the holes aren't lining up. That's why you have to press the valves all the way down. Just like with the C, you have to have a consistent stream of air, your good buzz, and that'll get your lips going and hitting the right note. So our first note is just open, that's a C. Our second note, first and third valve down, is D. There it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a metronome. Right here. Let's put it on a lot slower than that. Let's go to 60, in fact. Oh, I can't do that. There we go, 60. I'm going to play 4 beats, and then you're going to play it back. Okay? I'm just going to start with the C by itself. So I might go C, C. Then you'd play C, C. Then I'd play C, C, C. Then you'd play C, C, C. Right? 4 beats, 4 beats. I'll point at you when it's your turn. 1, 2, me first. Right? And that's just with your C. When you're changing notes, do not take a breath in between every note. You're going to lose that consistent airstream. You're going to automatically go like this. And if you do that, you're losing the seal every time you do it. Your tongue should be making that decision. It should be ta, 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 ta. Should not be ta, 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 because you're going to hyperventilate if you do that. So it's tu, 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 tu. So your lungs are pressing out the same amount of pressure the whole time, but your tongue is just hitting the very back of your teeth to stop the air from going through, right? So now I'm going to do that. I'm going to add in D. So it will be both C and D. And switching has to be at the same time, right? So both valves have to move at the same time. Ready, me. Right? So there is your first two notes. Let's add one more into the mix before we end today. We have our C, we have our D, and if you have studied your alphabet as extensively as I have, then you will know the next note is E. Right? E, being the next note, is the first and the second valve. So that is your first finger and your second finger. It's going to sound like. So that's your E, 1 and 2. So your first three notes are C, which is open, D, which is 1 and 3, and E, which is 1 and 2. Right? So now, back to our metronome. I'm going to play a pattern starting with just E, 4 beats. You're going to play it back. Then I'm going to start adding in other notes of the first 3 notes. We're moving at high speed during this video lesson, but this is for you to practice with for at least a full week. So take the time, rewind back to the first note, make sure you have that before moving on to the second, and then this is kind of the final part of this week, right? If you can get here at the end of the week, fantastic. If not, we're still growing here. So starting with just E, I'm going to start playing patterns. Ready? 1, 2, me first. Right? And then what I want you to submit to me this week, at the end of the week, is 8 beats of each note, one after each other. So what we're going to do is hold a C for 8 beats, as close to it as we can get. So it's going to be ready, breathe, C, and then rest for 8. 5, 6, 7, and then D. And then rest. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then E. That's it. So we just sung it there. Now we're going to play it. Play along with me to practice, and then submit it by yourself with a metronome at the end of the week. Ready? 1, 2, start with C. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then to D. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then to E. There it is. That's your whole homework. 24 beats of those 3 notes, 8 each, right? So focus on making sure your buzz is there. Your buzz has to be consistent. If it's not consistent out of your lips, it's not going to be consistent in your mouthpiece. And if it's not consistent on your mouthpiece, it's not going to be consistent in your instrument. It all starts with your lips. If your lips can do it, your mouthpiece can do it, your instrument can do it. They all work together. So don't skip any steps here. Really work on it. Try to make it as clean, consistent, and well pressured as you can. Make sure the pressure is consistent. That's one thing that's super important with this. If you have any questions, reach out to me, email me, let me know, leave me a comment. I will talk to you all later. Happy practicing.